Yep, there's a fish. Yep, there's a fish. Oh, that was a hit. Yep. Holy crap.
Jack. Oh, Jack, chuck us a net. I'll get a video.
Jesus Christ. Some nice snapper from the Munroes motor oil. Good start. Let's get a good look at him. That's a good frog. That's got to be around that mid-50s or so. Plenty of meat on him. Yep, cool. Let's get a nice shot of him for the camera. That's a nice snapper. That's around 6 kilos. That on a 3-inch Zman Slim Swims. I'm happy about that. G'day guys, it's Geordie here. So recently I put a couple of posts out on some of the fishing Facebook groups, just asking if people would be interested in what I regard as a really good land-based soft plastics kit to take around, and a lot of people were quite interested in it. So I'm going to make this video here and just cover all the gear that I usually take out with me when I'm doing land-based soft plastics fishing around Melbourne. So when it comes to this kind of fishing, I really am a minimalist. Now, if you watch videos on car design, exotic cars, things like that, you may have heard of someone called Gordon Murray. Gordon Murray is obsessed with reducing weight in as many areas as possible, and I've taken that same philosophy to my soft plastics kit. So I don't take anything excessive and things that I don't need. I've condensed it down to make it as lightweight and as compact as possible. Now, it might seem a little bit silly, but by the time you add in things like your drinks, you know, your lunch, your sunscreen, stuff like that, it really does start to make this bag get quite bulky and heavy. So you want to make sure that your gear is as condensed as possible and you've got everything you need there. So I've really, over the last, number of years that I've been doing this, I've really got my gear selection refined as much as possible for this type of fishing. So this kit will cover basically everything I use around Melbourne. Sometimes if I'm fishing like a deeper waterway or somewhere with more tide, or if I'm going after a specific species, I might swap out little bits of the kit here and there, but this is going to make up 90% of what I used for land-based soft plastics fishing. Now the gear can be bought from Hooked on Bait and Tackle and Hoppers Crossing. You can also go to the Munroes website or Facebook page to place an order, and there's also the Southern Edge Lures page on Facebook which you can place an order through. So what I'll do is I'll leave a couple of links in the description for all of you. You can go down there and basically find your way to those retailers to make your purchases if you wish. Alright, so we're going to go through the kit now. The first thing we're going to look at here is the bag itself. So when it comes to the bag, I'm not really too fussed. I'm not looking something with a million pockets and compartments and containers. Because there's not much gear in my kit, I'm happy to just sort of throw it all in a bag. This particular bag I got for free with a Diawa outfit. So when it comes to the bag, look, it's relatively thin and lightweight, obviously, to keep within that philosophy of being as lightweight as possible. But I'm not really that fussed about it, as long as it's comfortable, so that when you're doing all your walking over things like rock walls or along beaches, or when you're covering ground, like you want this to be lightweight so it's not adding to the gross weight of your backpack. Right, so the next thing we're going to look at here will be the jig head container. Let's get that out of the way. So we're going to start packing the bag with all this gear. So the first thing is the jig head container. I've got all my jig heads in there. I've got some soft plastics as well that are just sitting there loose. Sometimes when I get down to the bottom of a pack, if I've got a spare compartment in my container, I'll throw the last couple of soft plastics in there. Anywhere from 8 to 10 compartments is probably good. But if you can get it even smaller with less compartments, I definitely recommend doing that. Don't forget, we try to keep this as lightweight as possible and as small as possible. I used to have a big tub before, but I had so many compartments that I wasn't using, so many jig heads that I don't use for land-based. I've gotten rid of that, and now I'm using this. So highly recommend a small container like that for keeping your jig heads in it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to look at here is the scissors. So highly recommend everyone have a small pair of braid scissors like this. Don't carry a big large pair. Again, bulky, heavy. We're keeping everything as light as possible. Obviously for cutting your leader and your braid when you're rigging, I've seen so many people bite through their leader with their teeth. Please guys, don't do that. Don't wreck your teeth. Just buy a pair of these. They're like $5, $6, $7, $8 from most tackle shops. So just get a pair of good braid scissors for when you're re-rigging. Okay, so we've also got some long nose pliers here. So obviously for removing hooks from fish, but there's also things like cutters and a couple of little tools there on the pliers themselves. So if I need to quickly like pull a bearing apart or something to get some line out or something like that, I've got a nice little handy little tool there. Okay, so we've gone over these before, but these are the Diawa grips or lip grips that I use for landing bigger fish. When it's smaller fish, like I'll try to land them up on a rock or up on a beach, but once you get to the larger fish, like your flathead over 50 centimeters and your nice size snapper, your mulloway, things like that, which can get land-based, these are an absolute godsend. The nets, carrying a net around is just way too bulky. It's going to be the largest thing that you carry around. So with this, I can replace that net with this. Now I can hook this on my belt loop, I can hook it on the strap on the bag. It doesn't have to be in the bag, which is really, really handy as well, because that means you can put something in, like, let's say, roughly like a water bottle, which you can put in lieu of this, and it doesn't make the bag any more bulky. So definitely recommend that you carry around a set of lip grips. All right, so now we're going to look at the leader material that I take. Now I take two sizes in fluorocarbon, 10 pound and 20 pound. Your 10 is for your smaller species like your brim, your flathead, your whiting that can also take soft plastics at times, so your smaller estuary species. And then when I'm going to be targeting things like bigger snapper, mulloway, even larger flathead, I'll upgrade to the 20 pound. As you've seen in my previous video, 20 pound is good because it can still cast the small lightweight soft plastics and still get a fair bit of casting distance. So it's quite good in that regard, but you do get that bite resistance. So highly recommend 10 pound and 20 pound being your kit. 30 pounds probably going to be getting a little bit too heavy for casting the smaller soft plastics that you would usually fish land-based. Anything lower than 10, well, to be honest, land-based you do get things like snags and other things that can damage your leader, so I wouldn't feel too good if I had anything lighter than 10 pound on when I'm fishing soft plastics land-based. Okay, so one other thing we've got here, which is a bit of an optional extra, is the scent. I'm currently using the Berkley Gulp Gel. To be honest, it's not essential. I've probably caught more fish lately without it than with it. A lot of people think it makes a bit of a difference. If you want to use it, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But these tubes, again, they're a bit smaller than things like the ProCure, the large ProCure tubs. They're like a larger rectangular tube, and they're a bit more bulky. So little tubes like this, I definitely recommend for my kit. And one other thing here we're going to look at is the GoPro. So again, optional extra, a bit like the scent, but there's a couple of reasons why I recommend that people get this. The first one being, if you've caught a fish and you weren't sure of what jigging technique you were using to attract the bite, you can go back and watch the footage and see exactly what you did from the cast all the way through to the hookup. I've done that a few times now and discovered that I've had a few different jigging techniques that have brought on, say, the snapper recently, as well as the big one that ate the plastic. I'd pretty much cast it directly on its head. I didn't even get a chance to jig it. So it's really good having it for that. But obviously the other reason it's good for having it is the memories. If you turn this on when you start fishing and you go for a 2-hour session, it captures everything that happens while you're fishing. I recommend it on a head strap. You can get a chest plate if you like. I don't like the chest plate because I don't like having it in front of me when my arms are moving around, but up on the head, no worries. So you don't have to get one of these. If you want to, you can. It's not essential. Okay, so the one other thing that we're going to look at here is the soft plastics. Now, they're all in the packets here now, but what I'll do is I'll get them all out of the pack and just put them on the table in front of me. We're going to go through each one of them one by one, why I recommend it, what's so good about the color and the shape. So just bear with me for a moment. I'm just going to stop the camera and then we'll come back in a moment and have the plastics here and take a close look at each and every one of them.
One eternity later.
Alrighty guys, we're back with a selection of soft plastics here that I recommend for land-based fishing now. I just wanted to let you know my history of soft plastics first. I started about, it was actually over 10 years ago now. And when I first started, there was 2 brands you could buy. Berkley Gulps and Squidgies, and that was it. And even back then, they worked. And I've used every shape, every pattern, every color. And to be honest, they all work to catch fish. But over the last 11, 12 years or so that I've been using them, I've discovered that some will actually work a little better than others and are a little bit more consistent on producing fish. Sometimes you'll catch a good fish on that one that you just happen to throw out there for a laugh, but then you don't actually catch another good fish on it again for a long time. So I've really sort of like pulled those out and really condensed it down, and I found that there's two really good shapes for land-based: grub tails and paddle tails. So first of all, we're going to start looking at the grub tails. So grub tails are a lure that I recommend to all people that are starting with their fishing. The way that the grub tail or curly tail wiggles through the water is really enticing to pretty much all fish. So if I don't really know the area that well, I don't know what bait fish are there, just in general, I'm just fishing relatively blind, I'll generally put on a grub tail because that'll attract the bite from pretty much most fish in the area. So the two I've got here, this one here is from Southern Edge Lures. It is the 4-inch SIC-FISH, which stands for sickle fish because of the tail, and that's in the ghost white color. So you can get that from Jason on Southern Edge Lures on Facebook. Now the other one I've got here is the Munroes 2.5-inch grub, and that is in the UV enhanced motor oil color. So that's also a fantastic lure for people starting out with grub tails to have in their kit. Now I've also got a Braid option as well in the grub tails, which is the Berkley Nemesis 4-inch, and that is in the pink glitter color. The reason for that is because Flathead, in my opinion, lately have been absolutely loving pink. So I tend to keep one of those around just in case I know there's a few Flathead around. So I'll throw that around on occasion as well. Now, the one other thing I was going to mention about these little plastics here is while one is a 2.5-inch and one is a 4-inch, if you actually fold their tails away, the body profiles are not that different. This one's a little bigger, but the 2.5-inch grub isn't really that much smaller. So even if you go to something like a 4-inch, it's quite easy for most smaller fish to get their mouth around that and actually find the hook. So those curly tails, despite the length, they kind of fold away and become irrelevant, and that's the size of your bait. So as you can see with that, and then we go like that with the Munroes, those body shapes are almost the same size. This one's only a little bit bigger than this one. Now the other thing as well is these are the plasticine style soft plastic, not the Elastex. So they're not as tough as the Zmans are. But I actually find that when it comes to beginners doing soft plastics fishing, this plasticine style plastic is a lot easier to use and rig up. It might not last as long, but the way I see it is if you're having your soft plastics destroyed because you're catching fish, you could have worse problems. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the other lures I've got here, which are the paddle tails. Now, lately, paddle tails have been my go-to. I've been catching most of my fish lately on paddle tails, and if you look at the ones I've got here, they're all sort of like a greeny, goldy and white color. The reason being is that when I fish paddle tails, what I'm trying to do is imitate the bait fish in the area, and you don't find many, say, pink colored bait fish. So again, the golds, the whites, the greens, they tend to imitate, the small white bait and a little bait fish that you tend to get around in those areas that are around the land-based fishing spots. Okay, so the first two we're going to take a look at here are the Z-Mans. So, in my opinion, the best lure Z-Man has ever made are the 3-inch Slim Swims. Everything eats them. I've caught small flathead, big snapper, everything on these. So, while I had some troubles with Z-Mans a little while ago, I've managed to get around that now, and I've come to appreciate them. And yeah, the 3-inch Slim Swims, in my opinion, you've got to carry them. Now, the two colors that I recommend that you were to buy, just two. The Midnight Oil, so that's like motor oil, but with the white glitter flecks, so that's like a midnight sky with all the stars. So that's been a very successful lure for me lately. The other one I've got here is in Watermelon Red. Not UV enhanced, but I've caught a lot of fish on that soft plastic lately. Some really big snapper as well. One really, really good one, that is. So that's a good soft plastic. Always carry a pack of each of those in my bag at all times. So we've also got a couple of 3.75-inch paddle tails here, so in that sort of 4-inch range. These are the Munroes 3.75-inch paddle tails, and they are in the UV motor oil and the glass monkey. So the UV motor oil for me lately has been the best soft plastic for doing land-based fishing. I've had more hits on this than any other, and yeah, I've always got a couple of packs of these in my bag now, and it's usually my go-to lure now when I get somewhere and I know there's sort of small bait fish around the area. I'll start throwing one of these first. The other one is the glass monkey. So if you look at it, it's kind of got like a yellow back and a bit of a white belly, and this one's got glitter spots in it. The other soft plastic that I use that's very similar to this is the Kitech Easy Shiner 4-inch Wakasagi. Unfortunately, I've run out and I don't have any to show you. There's none at Mixed Tackle Store at Hooked in Bait and Tackle at the moment, so I've only got the Munroes. But look, this has caught me some nice snapper as well. Highly recommend that you carry one of these in your kit too. When it comes to a larger bait size, I carry 5-inch soft plastics. I don't think there's any reason to cast anything bigger than that from land-based. I don't think you're really going to encounter much bait fish larger than that. Or if they are larger, they're not going to be much larger, and you'll still attract a bite from, you know, large predators on the 5-inch plastics. So two that I always carry around are the Munroes 5-inch paddle tail in Glass Monkey. Again, similar to that Wakasagi color from Kitech. And the other one I like to carry is the Pearl White Nemesis paddle tail 5-inch, and that's in the Berkley Powerbaits range. So those two always are in my kit. I don't really cast them around too much, but if there's larger bait fish around, I'll generally start flicking one of those around as well. Now, if you had to twist my arm and ask me for one more pattern recommendation, I would probably recommend something like this. It's a 3-inch prawn imitation, and that is from Southern Edge Lures. It's called the Prawnhub. So get in touch with them on Facebook if you wanted to get one of those or a pack of those. It's kind of similar in colour to the Glass Monkey with the glitter in it, but it's a little bit more darker on the golden hue. So I would think that'd be a really, really good prawn imitation plastic. I generally don't flick the prawns around too much anymore. I did start with them way back when I first started soft plastics fishing, and I loved them. But ever since, I've kind of moved on to different plastics, and I've kind of moved away from the prawns. They don't have a hell of a lot of action, so may not be what you're wanting too much for a beginner's plastic. Something like the grub tail is probably a lot better, where as long as this is sort of moving through the water, that little grub tail is always going to wiggle enticingly. G'day guys, Future Geordie here. So I've just started editing everything and realised that I forgot to mention my top 3 recommendation within my soft plastic range. So I'll quickly show you what they are now. The first one is the Zman 3-inch Slim Swims in the watermelon red. Must have one of those in my opinion. One of the other ones is the SIC-FISH 4-inch from Southern Edge Lures in the Ghost White. Must have a white paddle tail in your kit at all times. And the last one here is the 3.75-inch Munroes UV motor oil paddle tail. Must have one of those in your kit at all times as well. So sorry about that, guys. Just a quick edit in here. Let's get back to the rest of the video. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the jig heads that I use for land-based soft plastics fishing. Now, if you saw my video on my flathead plastics, it's kind of the same thing where I'm really keeping things as simple as possible with my jig head selection. I have 3 hook sizes and 2 weight sizes that I use for my soft plastics, and I'm very specific with the brands I buy, and you'll see why in a moment. Okay, so first of all, we are looking at the smallest of the jig heads I carry. So they are in a 1/0 hook size. They are from TT Lures and are in the headlocks. Now the reason being is that I match them up with the Slim Swims. Now, if you've ever used Zmans before, you'll know that these are impossible to rig on anything other than the headlocks. So because of that, I always get the 1/0s from the TT Lures headlocks range. Now you can use them with things like your grub tails and your plasticine style plastics, like your Munroes, things like that. But I don't really recommend that you do that too much, because this jig keeper on the shank causes a tunneling effect in the soft plastic. So that reduces the life of the soft plastic and ends up causing it to be pulled off the jig head a lot sooner. So because of that, and because most of my larger plastics are the plasticine style, I use ones more like this. Now, this is the Mustad 2/0 in the 1/6 of an ounce, and this is a Jigman 1/4 ounce in the 2/0. So as you can see, they don't have the large hook keep, lead hook keep down the shank, so they don't tunnel the plastic. If you can imagine, that doesn't go all the way down the plastic, so it doesn't cause this big barrel down there. So definitely recommend using these with your plasticine. Look, if you could only choose one brand of jig head and only wanted to buy one brand, I suppose you could buy the headlocks, but just understand that you are reducing the life on your plasticine style soft plastics. So definitely don't recommend doing that. Now those 2.0s, again, I use those on the 3.75 4-inch paddle tails. You can use them on the 4-inch grubs as well. They fit in well, but with those grubs, you can use a 1.0. I don't really recommend a 2.0 in the slim swims. It's a little bit big. So definitely in those 4-inch paddle tails, it's the way to go. Now, once we go to the 5.0s, we go up to a 4.0 hook size. Now again, 1/6 of an ounce for this one, and this one here is a 1/4 ounce. 4.0 hook size. They match up really, really well with the 5-inch Munroes. If you look at that, plenty of gape. It's not too big for the plastic. It's perfect size. So 1.0, 2.0, and 4.0, 1/6 of an ounce and 1/4 ounce. For land-based, that's all you're going to need. I don't like to fish any heavier because we usually are fishing shallow water. So if you go heavy, it's just going to plow its way down to the bottom really quickly. Alternatively, if you go the other way and you start going to like 1/8, 1/12, 1/16, these jig heads are really, really lightweight. You're going to have trouble getting a really long cast and potentially covering more ground. So 1/6 and 1/8 of an ounce as far as the weights, I find are absolutely perfect. All right, so now we're going to quickly cover the outfit that I use for land-based soft plastics fishing. Just when I'm fishing generally, you know, not really sure what I'm targeting, not sure what I'm going to catch. So this here is kind of similar to my entry-level soft plastics outfit as far as size goes. However, it's a little bit better in quality. So the rod itself, this is an NS Black, it's not the Black Hole, sorry, it's the Black Water. This is actually an Iggy rod. I don't do that much Iggy fishing, squid fishing anymore. So I've converted this now to more of my land-based soft plastics outfit. It's 7'6", so it's that perfect size for getting a long cast from the shore, but not being too long, and causing you sort of like endurance and sort of stamina issues and soreness. It's a 3 to 6 kilos, so fairly lightweight, not too heavy. Again, you're able to cast those plastics out, but as compared to my snapper soft plastics outfit, it's not quite so heavy. Now the reel is a Shimano Symmetry 2500. That is now discontinued, as is the rod, I believe. So if you go to Hooked on Bait and Tackle, just ask for like a 7'6", 3 to 6 kilo and a 2500 reel. Probably the Nasky from Shimano is probably the most similar, or like probably was the replacement for the Symmetry actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, if you get one of those, I've got 8-pound braid. 10-pound will probably be okay as well, but the 8-pound gives me a little bit more casting distance. So that is what I regard as a perfect outfit for doing land-based soft plastics fishing. You're going to cast the small soft plastics. You're also going to be able to cast the big ones. You'll be able to land big fish. You'll be able to feel the bites on the small fish as well. Right, so that's it, guys. So that's what I carry for my land-based soft plastics kit. So if you like what you saw, please like the video, comment, subscribe, share it around with your friends. If you've got any recommendations down below that you'd like to give to other people who might be watching the video, to things that they might be able to add to their kit, please feel free. At the end of the day, I'm always for improving my kit, making things better. If you think I can do something better, please leave a comment. I'm more than happy to respond and let you know if I'm going to update my kit. Take it easy, guys. Good luck. Hopefully you guys are all catching some good fish soon.